Okay.
Con esta canción le doy paso al conversatorio.
Thank you so much for this time of animation. America, with the power of the Spirit, witnesses to Christ. I thought there were 500 people in this hall. I only heard 20. It's like crickets. America, with the power of the Spirit, witnesses to Christ. Okay, now you're getting it. Hello to all of you. Turn to the people around you, to your left, to your right, and say, "It's so wonderful that you're here." In any language, it doesn't matter. Give them a nice smile. Flash them a nice missionary smile so that they feel the joy of a church that is joyful, that is in party mode, that is involved in the mission. Welcome. Welcome to this missiological reflection session. From Ponce, Puerto Rico, we send out greetings to all the brothers and sisters who are watching online. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for being here today. My name is Kenya Gomez Rivera. I'm a layperson from the Diocese of Fajardo in Humacao, Puerto Rico. We have some of our seminarians here with us today. And so I'm with you as the host, the facilitator this afternoon. And let's begin with the prayer of our Congress. So let's stand up if you're able. Doesn't matter if you do it in another language. You can do it in the language of your choice. And let's say together, "O omnipotent Father, O merciful Father, who revealed in your Son the good news announced in these lands of America by so many missionaries in word and deed. Help us to rediscover our vocation as baptized persons in order to give new impetus to our missionary activity, proclaiming, like them, the joy of the gospel. O God, you pour out your Holy Spirit to renew the face of the earth. Wounded by injustice and suffering, give us strength to walk as God's people in synodality and mutual listening towards the next American Missionary Congress, witnessing together the love that conquers the world. O God and our Father, you chose Mary as a model of evangelization to offer Christ to all humanity. Grant that, imitating her example of dedication and sustained by her maternal and providential care, we may always be your missionary disciples to the ends of the earth. Amen. You may be seated. And so at the beginning of this panel, of this conversation, it's important to remember that we are in the Monsignor Vicente Murga Theater. Make sure to take a look at your name tag. Only those from the green group should be here. If you're in the wrong room, take a look at the schedule, scan your QR code to figure out where you're supposed to be. In this room, we have simultaneous interpretation. So if you need to use that service, put your headset on and choose the channel you want in order to hear the language of your choice. It's like Pentecost, the Spirit is truly present. So put your headsets on and you can see the channels for each of the 4 languages on the screen. It's very important that we remember the following instruction. In this theater, you cannot eat or drink anything. If you need to have something to eat or a swig of water, please just go outside to do so and then come back. The restrooms are just out the doors you came in the main hallway of the theater. And make sure that your cell phones, your smartphones are on silent mode. During this panel, there will be 2 opportunities for questions from the audience. If you want to ask a question, please come to one of the mics, which you see in each of the aisles. the time is limited, so don't shoot the messenger. Don't get mad at me if I cut you off because the time's up. We ask that you perhaps write the question out in the most concise fashion, so that when you get to the mic, it will be very efficient, and we will give the opportunity to other participants. So let's review the theme of this Congress: evangelizers with the Spirit to the ends of the earth. The motto: America with the power of the Spirit, witnesses to Christ. The biblical text: you will receive the power of the Holy Spirit, which will be poured out over you, and you will be my witnesses to the ends of the earth, from the Acts of the Apostles. And the general objective or orientation: to propel forward with new passion and ardor the mission agendas of the church, walking together, listening to the Spirit, to be witnesses of the faith in Jesus Christ, in the realities of our peoples. And here is the thematic access, access for today. That's why you're here, right? To participate in this conversation. This afternoon, we are going to have a friendly, informal conversation. That's why we've created a sort of set on stage that looks like a living room, where a number of missionaries, agentes missionaries, will share with you their experiences, their lived experiences on the mission, to talk about the challenges they face and the ways in which they've been able to respond to those challenges. In the previous 2 days, we've experienced the presence of the Holy Spirit here in this theater, as they've shared the experience of giving of their lives to the mission. On Wednesday, we heard how they were driven forward by the Spirit beyond their borders to fulfill their vocation. And yesterday they talked about how through their missionary formation they became witnesses of the living Christ to the ends of the earth. And today we will take a look at specifically that theme, to the ends of the earth. And to facilitate, to moderate this discussion, we have the Reverend Father Jorge Cardona from the Diocese of Caguas here in Puerto Rico, Caguense. He's from Caguas. Hello, hello. And Sister Regina da Costa Pedro, missionary of the Immaculate and director of the OMP of the PMS in Brazil. And we also have members of the Secretariat of the Congress, Miguel Perez Mirabal, Ambar Ortiz, Jean Manuel Flores Perez, Jose Santiago Ramos, and Sandra Gonzalez. So let's give them a round of applause. They've done a lot of work, and they're also representing the Diocese of Caguas, Puerto Rico. So allow me to present to you our special guest today, Maria Luisa Messina, originally from the Philippines, missionary of the fraternity Verbum Dei for more than 39 years in the Philippines, Spain, and many other countries. Juana Maria, Sister Juanita, who is an Xaverian missionary. She worked with the Nahuatl indigenous people in Mexico, and also was in Rome and did some formation in New York, was sent to Thailand in 2002, and then she returned to Mexico after 15 years in Thailand and founded, after 15 years of the founding of that mission in Thailand. We also have a married couple. He is a rheumatologist, a doctor, and before meeting his wife, he was in Angola in Africa on mission, and she is a doctor and a veterinarian, and was involved in the Salesian missionary works they've been together in India, in rural communities, and they are now back in Argentina, in the northern province of Formosa, where they serve a number of indigenous communities, Huichipos and others. They are both professors of Gentes missionary work, and also involved with the PMS in Argentina. Ana Ibelis Ruiz is also with us from Jauco, Puerto Rico, missionary of the Villarregia missionary community for more than 26 years, sent by her community 5.5 years ago to give herself to the mission in Burkina Faso in West Africa, after missions in Ivory Coast, Peru, Guatemala, Mexico, Italy, and Puerto Rico. And now coming on stage is Father Jose Martinez, a Mexican priest sent to Africa, to Kenya specifically. Beautiful name that country has, doesn't it? And he also exercised his ministry as a deacon and then as a priest with Maasai communities, and later with the poorest of the poor in the Kibera slum in Nairobi. And in 2021 became a counselor for the Archdiocese to the deaf community in Nairobi, and later became director of evangelization with all of the tasks that that involves. Good afternoon, America, with the power of the Spirit, witnesses to Christ. This is the St. Francis Xavier group, right? And you've had to wait until Friday to meet our missionaries and to come in contact with their wonderful energy. They have already told us about their experiences yesterday with regards to formation and accompaniment in particular and local churches. And today we are moving on to the topic of the mission, specifically the ends of the earth, how they've experienced that in their missionary life. We don't want to continue without first recognizing the presence of two eminences, Cardinal Baltasar Porras Cardoso, who is here with us, the Emeritus Cardinal and Archbishop of Caracas, and the Cardinal of Havana, Juan de la Caridad. Thank you for being here with us as well. In the public, we also have a number of other bishops. So to your excellencies, to the other presbyters, priests, deacons, lay people, welcome to all of you. And we also have the executive secretary of CAM 6 with his wife, Natalia. Angel and Natalia are here. They've done spectacular, unbelievable work in organizing this Congress. These two lay people gave themselves heart and soul with the clergy and lay people, and they have really pulled off a tremendous Congress. So Angel and Natalia, thank you for your witness as lay people and your witness as members of a family and in your missionary work in Puerto Rico. So we're going to start with Juanita, who is the one who this morning shared her witness at the sport at the big hall across the campus. How do you describe the way the mission is developed? Do you want to say something about the social, economic, cultural aspects? How do you perceive the interlocutors in terms of attitudes, behaviors, expectations, dreams, concerns, and the challenges in your mission? I would add to what I said this morning when I said that to the religious aspect, one must add this whole notion of karma, the idea of karma, which is very much present and underlined in Thai society and culture. And I would also emphasize the fact that we need to take a step forward, that is accompanying the neophytes who have been baptized, give them another little push to help them take another step forward. Let me explain why. Because what I was saying this morning, poverty, injustice, sickness, illness are all product of their former life. And these newly baptized people who are still involved in a spiritual dialogue with someone, with a spiritual director, they are not able to remove that, what do we call it, that fear when they are with sick people, very poor people. And let me tell you about one woman in particular. After her baptism in this spiritual process that we accompanied her in, that I accompanied her in, the second year, I invited her to a slum where there was a group of women. Uh, the woman came with me, smiled, and when we left, she said, "Sister, don't invite me again. I don't want to go back." And I said, "Why? Why? What happened?" She said, "I don't want to see that reality again." And so you see, the Thai people need, or some individuals need to take that step forward to remove that those obstacles, so that they can advance in their Christian life, in their new Christian life. Thank you very much. Yes, karma is also a concept held dear by many Puerto Ricans, and we need to liberate ourselves of that as well. Over to you, Father, to tell us about your challenges. Yes, thank you very much. With this question around where would the development of the mission be, I think the issues that were shared are very illuminating, shed light on all of this. The experience on the ground, one of the aspects is knowing that as missionaries, we are not the protagonists. We need to know how to create links, how to build bridges, how to be in solidarity with what else. So I think it's a change of paradigm to not think, which is often the case when we arrive, especially when you arrive from an institute, a missionary institute, to say, as a missionary institute, we can be the protagonists. We are the ones who are going to do everything. We are going to change everything. And through us, the objectives of the mission will be accomplished. That's not the right approach. On the contrary, being in solidarity, feeling truly related to other realities, other organizations, other institutes, the fact that we add ourselves to a mission that's already taking place, and not everything's going to depend on us. We are not going to provide everything. When we know that we are in solidarity, when we link arms with others, that's when we can truly advance. And so the landscape opens itself up, the horizon opens itself up, becomes broader, in that our mission is the same: humanity. Let me share a very brief testimony story from the 15 years when I worked in the mission in Kenya. I worked in three main areas with the Maasai tribe, a semi-nomadic tribe, in the slum, the Kibera slum in Nairobi, and then pastoral work with the deaf in Nairobi as well. And I want to focus on the work with the deaf, which was a brand new work. It was a brand new piece of pastoral evangelization. I remember very well a deaf person who taught me Kenyan Sign Language. When we started, he was my only interlocutor, the only deaf person who I was ministering to, who I was the one who taught me sign language. And then after, the other deaf people started to arrive because the space was created for them. They started to come, and they started to ask to be formed, to be baptized, to receive the sacraments. And when I invited this deaf person who taught me Kenyan Sign Language, I want you to be the catechist. You are deaf, you are Kenyan, you know the reality of your own country, of your own community. And he first received this like a bucket of cold water. He said, no, I could never do this. And I said, no, I'm going to interpret to you some classes of catechesis. And that's what we did for 3 years. And he became the catechist. In fact, he's the only catechist in who is formed and who is deaf in the country, and who is doing all of the work. Not me. He's doing it. He's doing all of this pastoral work. So it's building relationships with others. They are part of the mission, and they are the ones who propel it forward. It's for them, with them, and through them. Thank you. A round of applause. In this conversation, it's interesting. There's a lot of diversity on the stage. There are some religious people. There's a priest. There are lay people. Actually, there are two priests. I'm the other one. And we have two lay people who are married to each other. And so how can they describe their work as a married couple? What are the joys? What are the challenges? So I want to start by thanking Angel, his wife, you, Father, the people of the organization who trusted us, thought of us, gave us the space, invited us to be here, thought it was useful, that it would be interesting to have us here, lay people, among other missionaries who have had 20, 30 years of experience. For us, it's a pleasure and a privilege. In 2004, I went to Angola with the Salesians, a missionary initiative of the Salesians. It's one of the Adjentes options we have, where one serves the Adjentes mission with one's expertise. Then we got married later, and when we wrote our letter to request where we'd be sent, we were sent to India. And we talked about this yesterday. We went to Lhasa and to India. India is the seventh biggest country geographically in the world, and is also the most populous country in the world. It is surpassed China now with more than 1.3 billion, and also the incredible diversity of races, cultures, ethnics, ethnic groups. There is Sikhism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam. So the religious diversity is also unbelievable. We went to a place with a totally different country with a very large Muslim population. Almost every state had its own language in India. And then there are dialects, of course. English is spoken in better educated spheres of society, and we prepared to learn ourselves by learning Hindi, which is the largest language group. But then we were sent to Maharashtra, where Marathi is spoken, and then we went to Gujarat. So in Maharashtra, they speak Marathi, and my wife, with her veterinary expertise, dealing with a lot of fowl, chickens, goats, and others. There are images, I think, that will be projected that show some of this. I'm just to illustrate some of the work we were doing there. And there was a certain degree of religious tolerance, but an important thing to say about Indian culture is that they still have the caste system, which is quite severe stratification, a hierarchical class system that's existed for 3,000 years. The lowest caste are the untouchables, and they are not worthy. In fact, they don't even deserve any help because they are uh, destined to be what they are. And so uh, the Brahmas and the upper castes, because they have good karma, because they behaved well in a previous life, deserve what they have. And so the untouchables are the lowest of the low, and it's a very powerful symbol. And so we were there in Maharashtra, where the Catholic Church has a certain influence but did not carry a catechesis. There is an initial vocation program in the villages, and a form of avoiding discrimination between the castes and sexism, misogyny. Men, women, children had the same level. These were missionary exercises, missionary approaches. And so then we were in Gujarat, where they speak Gujarati. That's where Gandhi's from. It's more fundamentalist. There's alcohol is prohibited. There was a lot of religious intolerance there. We spent Christmas there, and we felt a certain discomfort, the concern of the people sharing our house. And it was the first time in 10 years that there had not been an attack of some kind in Maharashtra. Uh, we could, openly proclaim that we were missionaries, but not in Gujarat. So young people would come to the center. They're all indigenous people from an indigenous ethnicity in this region. There's a home for 180 of them, these young people. There is also a service where we go out to the villages. Uh, Also, a lot of care provided to animals. Often, the livestock, are cared for more than women and children in the family. I'm not saying that to stereotype, it's often actually the case. And another experience in Gujarat was the empowerment of women by the church. We're talking about peasant women from the very low castes, indigenous women, and there was a system where cooperatives were founded to share the work equally. And so, two very interesting points to finish. We spoke about the Holy Spirit sustaining the mission, and Mary as the first evangelizer, the first missionary. They are polytheist, and so trying to convey monotheism. But the Virgin Mary would provoke kind of an interesting reaction. They really had a reverence, devotion for her. She was like another god among their pantheon of gods and goddesses. And another interesting issue is around the services offered. 7 to 2 in the afternoon, we went to a home to uh, a woman came, the wife came, and then there were 100 other people.
And here we have some pictures of their clothing. Just this very simple fact of service offers us more opportunities for interaction through mission. We could interact with the rest of the people. We, could talk about a lot here, but three things: gaze, smile, presence. Latinos are very affectionate. We're always hugging. There, it's not like that. You can't touch people. They're not going to hug. However, you can transmit the same feeling through your gaze, the way that you look at people. And with this, so the gaze is the first evangelical message. A smile goes a very long way as well. You may not have the same language, but smiles go a very long way. And then lastly, presence. It's your way of saying you are important because, I am here. So this is, service and the messages. And then, the answering the question, what is the situation, with these people who are from a lower caste? So they would they also had questions about what we were doing there. And earlier you talked about their greeting, Namaste. My God greets your God. So we felt God in the other, the same that is in me, and that was the most important thing. Well, we have here with us someone from the Philippines, and when people talk about Asia, that continent, we realize that we're not very familiar with it here in the Americas. So we have someone from Asia who can share her experiences with us. But first of all, I would like to thank the missionaries, nuns, members of the clergy for going to the ends of the earth, because I think that some of us here who have been to Asia, it really is the end of the earth. So I'm very grateful because if it weren't for people going to the ends of the earth, I wouldn't be here. So thank you to the evangelizers. Thank you for taking on that risk. Now, I am here as an Asian sharing this faith with you. Now, the Philippines is a very densely populated nation. We have uh, 12 million people in a very 112 million people in a very small territory. It is a country that is vastly Catholic. There are minority populations of Muslims, Buddhists, and other religions as well. There are different Christian movements also. So, what can you find in the Philippines? Well, first of all, what you find is a very joyful people. Even, after the typhoons, the hurricanes, there is so much joy because there is a resilient spirit to keep moving forward and to never allow oneself to be crushed by difficult situations. People recover from hurricanes and from earthquakes. We are in the Ring of Fire, so for that reason, earthquakes and typhoons and hurricanes are just a normal part of life in that land. In 1 year, we have 20 cyclones. 1, 2, or 3. Now it depends on global warming, but they can be devastating. As I shared with you the other day, I believe it was yesterday. And in addition to being a very joyful country, it is a very inclusive place. We are very happy when foreigners come to the Philippines. When the Spanish arrived and after there was a revolution, we had no uh, um, we were not angry about it afterwards. We never had any anger towards the Japanese after they came as well, because we had the assistance of God, and we were able to forgive all of these acts. The culture in the Philippines gives a great deal of importance to family. So the father of the family lives for the mother of the family and the children. The mother of the family lives for the father and the children. And also there is a great deal of generosity. Even, if we only have a small amount of rice, we will share it with everyone else. Um, Everyone shares, what little they have with the whole family. Now, there is a big challenge in our evangelization with regards to families. And there is a difficult reality right now because a lot of fathers, a lot of mothers work in countries other than the Philippines. They leave the Philippines to work in foreign countries because they can have a greater income there and have more possibilities to succeed financially and support their families. So the culture has an absent father, absent um, mother as well. Sometimes at a political level and at a social level, we feel the absence of fathers and mothers in the sense that there is a lack of a leader figure. So what do? They don't have points of reference. There are a lot of young people who say this is the love, this love that comes from a father. It's not there, or the affection, the tenderness of a mother is not present in a lot of families. So the tasks to do there are, you can talk directly to God and about faith because it is a Catholic nation, but we request a lot of moral authority because no one can uh, give more than what someone asks for. So, whatever someone gives, they live. Whatever you preach, you show that. So, where there is a preacher, we are. Um, uh, we're behind that. Whenever there is a bishop or a cardinal who lives for the people follow him. And if there is an ad that promises health, work, and so on, then we will follow it. However, in many cases, we have felt a disappointment because oftentimes these promises turned out to be empty. So the dream of Filipinos is to find solid families where parents are present and where the nation is present, and where there are real political leaders who are concerned about the common good. We have become very revolutionary several times. We have overthrown governments. Marcos, for example, Estrada, we didn't want him. Macapagal, we didn't want either. So there was a lot of political tension, social tension, economic tension, uh, due to so many changes because we were looking for people who were not self-interested. We have been looking for people who really are seeking the common good, and sometimes the poor are tricked by empty promises. You're going to get a house, your children are going to have an education, your family is going to have a future. What empty promises they are sometimes. So we need to go back and give them, once again, hope that comes not just from the spiritual side of things, but also from the visible things, practical things. That's about what I can say in the little time that I have. It seems like you're talking about Puerto Rico. And a lot of our countries that have migration, no, Mexicans, Guatemalans who go out following the dream of the North. Well, Anna Ibelis are also Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican too, just so you know. Hello, everyone. So I'll be talking to you a little bit about Burkina Faso. On Wednesday, I had the opportunity to talk about this country in West Africa that has no port. no access to the sea. And that's important because the Latin American countries who do not have a port know what that means. Merchandise is more expensive because you have to pay for the transportation. So it's a country with 26 different ethnicities and 26 different languages. More is the most common language spoken by the Moaga people. 62% of the population speaks that language. It's the kingdom that is located in the capital. So there they speak More, and I try to speak it, but well, I won't do it now. So 26 ethnicities, 26 languages, official languages. There's French as well. It was a colonial country, of course, colonized country. There has been a lot of oppression. I say that with all due respect. In recent years, mm, they don't want their leader anymore. In 2022, there were 2 coups d'états in the space of 8 months. That was my first experience with that. I had never lived through a coup d'état. Um, I hadn't experienced such intense repression. So we live under the threat of terrorism. The government that's currently in power has passed a constitutional assembly. The president was officially declared not just, as president of the transition, and he is working on primarily on a war against terrorists, as they call it. We are live right now, I know, and so I am going to, speak with all due respect, but it was the event that made me suffer the most in my life. Living through this, it was a great deal of suffering. There are a lot of people who there's been a lot of movement of people, a lot of people fleeing because of terrorists showing up in new areas. So this is a people that are very welcoming. When you arrive, there is a welcome ritual. In Burkina Faso, time doesn't exist. So you arrive, they open they give this whole welcome ritual that just continues. It goes on and on and on to greet you. They give you water, and then after they ask you what are the news? What's the news? But you can't say what the news is. You can only say I have come to greet you, and then you continue to talk, and then afterwards you can share the real reason for your arrival. So it's a people who really welcome people. It is also a people that give great importance to family. Now, I'm from a town that's about 30 minutes away. Family is very important. You say, "Oh, hello, father," or "How are you?" "Oh, good. I was at my cousin's house," and it's not really he's not a cousin because he's the son of your uncle. It's just a cousin from the town. It's this idea of family that's very, very broad. So if someone tells me in Burkina Faso I'm Puerto Rican, it's as if we grew up together, even if I've never seen the person before. It's real, this idea of a big family. And so it's like that there as well. It's a very interesting element. So, very welcoming. Family is very important, and they have a great sense of identity. They are Burkina, and I also want to be Burkinabe. And the people of Burkina Faso defend what is theirs and what their roots are. They reject things that are foreign, and of course Christianity is also foreign, but there's also Islam there. So at this historical moment, particularly in younger generations, they are claiming back what they are. So it's an idea of going back to their history, and there are customs that don't always give dignity, don't always give full meaning to a person's life. So there's a struggle going on because they recognize that the Christian path, only 23% of the population is Christian, 19% Catholic. The other are different sects, and then there are the Muslims, and there is a large population of the traditional religion. So in this context where we find ourselves, our mass is packed, and it is a very joyful ceremony. I've been there for many years, and I have seen how Mass is just, the church absolutely is packed. There are tons of people outside of the church as well, but we know that we can't say, okay, great, the love of God is here, the kingdom of God is here. It is there, of course, but we have a lot of work left to do, particularly because, as I said on Wednesday, it's a very scary situation with terrorism. There's, they talk about witchcraft a lot, and we are familiar with this in our where we're here as well. But it's very intense, particularly because it is a tradition that often inspires fear. So I'm afraid. I spend my time being afraid of what's going to happen. I'll give an example, just to conclude. If someone gets in a car accident and someone dies, they will not have a dignified burial. They make a hole in the cemetery and they just push the person into there, because the idea there is that if this happened to you, it's because there is a curse in our family, and it will spread to the rest of us if we touch you. So this is a struggle. Here we're talking about human dignity. We're not talking about anything else. It doesn't have anything to do with the kingdom of God. This goes beyond that. It's the dignity of the person. But we know that this is something that makes people suffer a lot, and there's this big process of accompanying people, and the most important thing here is human dignity. This is one example of many. There are so many children there, at least 4 per family, but you can't imagine. You don't know when a woman is pregnant, even if the baby is about to be born. They don't tell anyone because they're afraid that a curse could be put on the child. So they don't tell anyone. Here you say, oh, you're having a baby. Well, congratulations, but we don't see anything else. There's no baby shower. There's no gender reveal party. We don't do that, right? But there they go, even further with it. There's a lot of environmental destruction. There are hurricanes. There's a lot of sand. We know what it means to have a lot of wind that kicks up the sand here, but over there it's the Sahara, so it's the next level. Thank you very much, Annie Willis. We wanted to be able to have a little bit extra time right now for what you're talking about before we move on to questions. However, I have a question. You might answer this in the second session, but you said that for a lot of people, Christianity is a threat to their identity, and that is a big challenge for the mission. So perhaps if you could just introduce this discussion. Yeah, so I'm going to open the floor right now for questions first for this first part. If anyone on the floor has a question for our panelists, we don't have a lot of time, so please be brief. I'm Father Camilo from Brazil. I worked for 8 years in Mozambique, Philippines, Angola. my question for any one of you, um, there is it's very difficult for the mission when we face violence, these political problems, language. But what is the joy of missionaries? What is the realization? Because you talk about a mission with so much joy. So what is the joy of mission? Well, missionaries sometimes encounter titanic situations. So here we've been talking about countries in Africa, for example. We've been talking about poverty, violence, situations of injustice, sometimes even corruption. There are political institutions that are um, hurting people. You see people who are suffering, and these are situations that um, really, break into you, and sometimes um, people you don't know how to respond. It's hard to know how to respond in the face of such colossal challenges. And sometimes people end up asking themselves, what am I doing here? In the face of all of these problems that I don't know if I'm going to be able to resolve them, what am I doing here if, I really have an option that gives, shows the horizon of a meaningful solution, particularly if somebody feels like they are, in over their head. But the gestures and the response from the people when they manifest their or express their gratitude for the fact that you are there, that fills your heart with satisfaction as a missionary, because you know that your presence brings hope. And our message is hope. So it is God Himself that makes us feel the satisfaction, the enjoyment of being there, because it is God Himself. Knowing that a gesture, a word, just your presence opens new doors. So it's not about just throwing up your hands and giving in to mediocrity. It's about inspiring creativity in order to walk together with them, converse about these topics, and think together about what you can do together. So when you start that conversation, it brings the satisfaction of exhausting yourself with so much, doing so much, doing everything that you possibly can. I have a question first for the people from Thailand. The Cardinal of the Havana, and I, joined together with a number of people, and we decided that we needed to come up with a course for people and offer sacrament to people. First, we were doing baptism, communion with people in Cuba. They were waiting a year for the sacrament of confirmation. We've got, we do this for a lot of adults in Cuba. So I wanted to ask you, in that process, if in this process, is it all the way up to confirmation, or at what point does this happen? It's quite a concrete question, but the other thing that I'm wondering is if you're a couple, right? I'm wondering, can a whole family go? Uh, Someone from the Philippines, for example, could they say, I'm gonna, buy my ticket and go over there? Can someone just choose where they're gonna go and take their family and so on? Well, so that question is, how can we do this? Okay, well, in Thailand, um, there's a process that lasts 3 years, and after the 3 years, you give the sacrament to everyone, and then there are 2 years of spiritual accompaniment. So first you have the formation. The first year is just about Jesus, and then after that you have the story of salvation, um, and uh, as you do in the catechumenate, and then in during those years, you accompany people with a great deal of care because we still don't know to what extent they really believe. What is their relationship with God? Uh, because they don't have a God, and we preach to them that God is a person. So you have to take a lot of care to see to what extent the person has that relationship with God as a person. And it's a very slow process, but it's a very beautiful one as well because um, that is when you discover the real presence of God in the person. So it can be up to say 5 years depending on the person. And for the other question, if people here want to go, in my congregation in particular, um, we proposed opening up the doors of our house in order to welcome lay people, whoever would like to go for a period, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, depends. But the condition is that they're in a relationship with their own diocese, so that there's someone who's sending them. It's not just a person who says, I would like to go, so I'm going to go, right? No, it all goes in its order. Uh, they have to be integrated into a parish and then integrated into their diocese so that there is a structure, a family, a specific church that sends that person to make sure that they, guarantee the experience of that person as well, to make sure that they are in dialogue with their specific church, and then that way when they go back home they report to their church as well. Okay, now we're going to hear from the couple because we'd also like to hear about mission with children. So we did not decide to have children to go on mission with them. It's just that this is what happened to or sorry, we don't have children. We don't have children. But that is not the reason that we went on the mission. I think that if we had children, we would take them. You can do that. Before we met, um, you know, we joined together as a couple and had this experience together after we met. But with regards to the second question, it would be amazing if the Pope were to say, everyone baptized and sent. I want all these people to go out. You take a tent, just to get out there. Mission is for everyone, here, there, and even further, wherever the Spirit is guiding you. Of course, there's a process of accompaniment, and uh, but this is a challenge that we have as pontifical missionary works. We need to exchange, and we need to discuss with one another. We need to share our language and everything else because church is everything.
That would be ideal. In Argentina, you might have heard in the conversation we have sister dioceses, a portion of the Diocese of the Amazon asked for people, and a portion of the Diocese of Argentina answered the call. Now, talking about family, if a family wants to be missionary, they can, and hopefully that would happen because there are many congregation you need to find out because in the Salesian congregation we welcome families with children. If they're very small, maybe not, but 2 or 3 years and up, there are many missionary families with children. Don't think that because you have children you can't go. Everyone can go. One last question for this first round of questions, and then we'll have a second round of questions. I am Luis Fernando. I am a bishop in Brazil. I spent almost 20 years in Mozambique. And one of the things that most struck me from the very beginning was the place or the position in society of the elderly. In almost all societies, the council is the coordinator of the catecheses, of liturgy, of other pastorals, and one elder man and an elder woman. The elders have a voice. How does it work in Asia? In Asia, the elders are incredibly well respected. In particular, in the Philippines and Singapore and Taiwan. Those are the places I know well, so I can speak for these places. They are incredibly well respected because they are a source of wisdom for all of us. Amongst family members, we fight to see who will take care of the father, the grandfather, the grandmother, the great grandparents. And it is a sin to send them into long-term care. If they can die in their own home, that's better. And the grandparents are those who truly transmit and transfer the faith. And sometimes because of the absence of a mother or father, because of their work, the grandparents are like parents to the children. So there's a very strong relationship with the grandparents, with the elders. And for us, also the elders, when it comes to politics or the social level, like for example, in the Philippines, when you turn 60 or 65, you get 20% off in restaurants, in McDonald's, for public transit. And then when you turn 70, you get a free chocolate or mango pie from the municipality. The elders are incredibly well respected and they're a source of wisdom. Just to add a word, in our case, what we saw, because India is a huge country, what we saw in the places we were the elderly slept outside. They weren't even allowed to sleep inside. So the extremes of life, they weren't productive anymore. So they slept outside. They were excluded from society. Someone spoke of food. I know that some might be hungry, but I've been asked to remind everyone that in this space we cannot eat or drink. So if you need to eat or drink, you need to leave the theater hall. So we're going to end this first round of questions and dialogue with a small reflection. We were told this morning that a disciple who doesn't contemplate doesn't burn. And we've heard from our brothers and sisters their witness, and our hearts are filled with the contemplation. So let's ignite our hearts, and we'd like to mention the that the Bishop of Magallanes is here with us, which is a tremendous gift.
So please use the headphones for the next part because we will be changing languages. As it was mentioned at the beginning, I'm Regina from Brazil. I am the director of the Pontifical Works in Brazil. I also missioned in Africa for a couple of years. But I'm not here to talk about my experience. I'm here to be a mediator. I would like to remind you that today's theme has helped us understand that our invitation to mission invites us to go to the ends of the world. This morning, we heard it very clearly. We are all missionaries, but the mission has a place, has places. It happens in the margins. It happens far from our own homes and our own parishes. A we have to move outwards. During the first part, we had the opportunity to hear everyone here talk about the context in which the mission happened for them. And that's important for us too be, because these days we are trying to live a missionary theology in dialogue, and this also is built by hearing, touching others' realities. Right now, we want to ask you a question that will help you with what's going to happen after the Congress. The Congress is a process, it's not an event. So, we would like to ask you, what are the proposals, the suggestions that you would have for local private churches that would help with answering or responding to current challenges of today, with this idea of local churches thinking of America towards the world and vice versa. So this is the question, this is the theme that we have in mind. So your suggestions for local private churches that are represented here. In our church, we have the richness of missionary works. We have pontifical works that are episcopal works because they happen concretely in every diocese. And what's the goal of these pontifical missionary works? I was listening to Maria Belen, and I thought that she was talking about what the pontifical works offer. It's this possibility of cooperating concretely for the universal church mission. And it starts with small projects, and it can be all the way to, it can start with work for children all the way to older people. It would be important for local churches to open up their spaces and use the services of pontifical works. That's what they're there for. It's so that we can push the universal missionary passion forward.
Do we have any questions now? If you can please go to the microphone so that we can hear. My question is linked to the previous topic, and I don't want to leave with this question because as Franciscans of Mary the Immaculate, we just experienced a kidnapping of one of our sisters in and Mary. She was freed in 2022 when the Pope was initiating the Jubilee. But my question is, what stays from the traditional religion when they become Catholic? I lived for 4.5 years, but I am amongst Muslims. I know the reality of many countries because these are countries that have very similar realities. In the Philippines, we have sisters from the Philippines, but we're not present in the Philippines. We have sisters from Burkina Faso, and we're not present in Burkina Faso. We have sisters from Mexico, and we have very little presence in Mexico. So, how is this lived in your realities? The commitment of the Catholic religion, because it's difficult to break with tradition and the traditional religion of the countries.
I shared yesterday with the group that was here with us yesterday that I worked in the university where there are many young people coming from different religious beliefs, Catholic, Muslim, and Hindu. They're all studying together in this university. And how is it possible to create dialogue, that interreligious dialogue? I think it's not an issue of competence, of capacities, that my belief is better or higher than your belief. It is not to consider that my faith in a Christian God is more visible than your God, who perhaps doesn't have eyes or a mouth, is an image, etc. It's not an issue of seeing the differences or the diversities I think the key question for this interreligious dialogue and that we need to welcome this diversity is what kind of Hindu, what kind of Christian, what kind of Catholic are you? So this quality is characterized by valuing diversity. We're not here to debate or to fight. So when we talk about walking in love, when we talk about human development, when we try to find a path towards human dignity, there is a united pathway. It is to value the person, value their questions, value where each one comes from. And so I think that's what creates interreligious dialogue. Next question over here. Thank you. My name is Sebastian. I'm from Canada with my wife. We have this mandate for the bishop. We work with Indigenous peoples in a very particular situation. It's a community with which we work is 35 kilometers from our house. So it's very different than other missionary experiences I've had. We go with the family, with our kids, and we come home. And there are two worlds, completely different worlds, as if there was a kind of segregation, there's a kind of racism, a strong racism still. I don't know how much you know about the church in Canada. I don't want to get into that. We are outside of our parish. Our bishop, our parish doesn't know that I'm here and doesn't know anything about our missionary commitment. But that's something we're going to work on when we go back with the support I've received from here. I feel in communion with all of you and with my wife. Anyway, the question I have is this Catholicity that these indigenous people received, what's the word? Indigenous people, there's something very traditionally Catholic in it. And there are questions around how to integrate indigenous symbols. And the question I have concerning the example in Chiapas, the missiology, there are missiologists who focus on indigenization, indigenizing, and I reflect on this. And officially, I don't have any position because I want to accompany people. I don't want to tell them that this or that is the right way. As lay people, my wife and I, for 170 years, it's the first time that lay people are there. It's the first time that it's not missionaries arriving to tell them how to do things. So we are calmly trying to accompany people there. But I'd like to form in my mind an understanding of what it means to indigenize the rite, the ritual, without making it a fashionable syncretism, just a tokenism on the surface. And perhaps you can help me. In India, we work with in Argentina we work with indigenous people. After Angola, now we're working with three different ethnicities. 180 kilometers, 40 kilometers from the capital city of the province, a very Catholic province, we have this challenge. I think we have to change the paradigm. A lot of missiological texts speak about interculturality, and we have to change that language. We have to talk about the fact that the Spirit was always there. We didn't bring it, and share from heart to heart. Find the seed of the kingdom and share the love. And the liturgical comes after. The liturgical celebrated in their life is not a syncretism, is not a threat to our faith. We live our faith heart to heart, and we share the word in their way, in our way, however it happens. We celebrate life together, and probably in that community, one of the values is, because Indigenous people have a lot to teach the entire world about equality, about diversity, about respect for nature. It's the same God, and we have to celebrate it in that way. Open our hearts to share in communion. Very brief, because we have to close. Over here first, yes. My name is Angela Diaz. I'm here from Puerto Rico. I'm a coordinator of pastoral work with young people, and I want to say that in many communities, young people seem to be more open to the action of the Holy Spirit than adults, especially those who feel driven by the Spirit towards the mission and want to make a difference in their common home, which is the planet Earth. Tell us from your point of view as missionaries what you suggest to young people who feel driven by the Spirit to act with their gifts and their talents and their charisms, and they don't feel support. This is the reality where we are from the adults, in particular from their own parents and the leaders in the parishes. Thank you very much for this honesty and for your courage. And believe me that as a priest, I was a parishioner, I accompanied young people, and I heard and saw these kinds of situations. There is a question that I would raise here, and you could perhaps share it with others. When it has to do with the Spirit and you're convinced of it, there's no door that can be closed. There will always be an opportunity, a new horizon, a link, a relationship that can be created. If it's not here, it's there. As we heard even in the quotation from St. Paul, sometimes the wind blows here and then it blows there. Don't allow the passion to be snuffed out, the passion to share the gospel of life from your youthful point of view, with the youth that you're with, that you continue this. Let yourselves be accompanied as well. I think that the impetus of young people can also be complementary in terms of by the wisdom of the elderly, of seniors. We are not independent, we complement each other. So let yourselves be accompanied. Open your spirits to this. And from this accompaniment, you can even mature the options, the paths that open for you. And I come back to the following. Don't let your fire, your passion to share Christ don't let it be snuffed out. Don't let it be extinguished. Last question right here. Yes, I was going in the same direction because we are all missionaries. But the youth, this was my question. What she said, how do we motivate these young people who will replace us in the coming years to carry that message of joy of God, not only to Asia and Africa, Oceania, but also to North America, where young people does not believe very much, where there is a lack of missionaries to teach them to love Jesus and Mary, and that we say it's worth it's worth it to go out and announce and proclaim the word of God, the word of Jesus, and we may come across obstacles or even worse because nobody taught us to love. So what advice would you give to us here in the Americas? In North America, where I'm from, well, I'm Salvadoran, but I live in Canada, to be missionaries and accompany so many young people who I've seen arrive here in Puerto Rico, and I congratulate them, to go out and to love Jesus. How do you make this contagion spread? Uh, as I said, we are Salesians, and our charism is the young person, young people. It's that young heart that makes us all young. Two things. Let's follow the Pope. The Pope says young people create relationships in the diocese. Show your hearts. Speak from your hearts. Young people have strength. Don't give up. Let yourself be accompanied with humility, but be there, be present. Please, please, young people, get involved with the church. Animate yourselves to love. Have patience when we don't hear you. Don't get tired. We need you because the future of the Americas is the young people, young missionaries, agentes. Please. The time is up. There is a possibility. Those of you who still have questions, I have some small pieces of paper. My colleagues will help distribute them. You can write your questions down and who you're addressing the question to. Put your email and give us those papers, and some of our brothers and sisters here will be able to answer through these emails. Perhaps you felt concerned, worried, or you have something to contribute to this dialogue and you weren't able to do it through a question, but you see on the screen there is a QR code where you can contribute to this dialogue, having heard the testimonies, the witness of all of these colleagues. So this moment we've had is not over. It's not over with this dialogue. We still have a few days. We see the faces of these brothers and sisters, and if you have more questions, we will stay here for a few more minutes so you can continue, but we do have to close this space. And we thank each one of them. It's been wonderful to hear them. A round of applause to each of them, to each of you for your attentiveness. And also remind you to return your interpretation devices before leaving the room. And we'll be back in the sports complex. Oh, there's going to be a photo taken. So please stay where you are, stay in your seats. And one of the reasons why we need to close is that the theater is going to close. So there's a rule of the university, that's why we have to leave. But these 3 days have been wonderful. A round of applause, and may the Spirit continue to accompany us.